Good morning, it's Dave at ATI Watch Reviews. Please smash the like button, please smash the subscribe button for more awesome watch content. Little wristwatch check. Got my Addies dive on. One of the cheapest homages, luxury dive homages that you can buy. And I think I paid about 45 GBP a couple of years ago when I bought it. But it is one of the comfiest homages that you can buy. 200 meter diver, all black, ceramic bezel, polished inner links, which I actually do love. Now then, this is a Gshock comparison battle between three absolute stellar behemoths that I love all three of them, really. Not equally, but I do love all three of them, and they're all going to be staying in my collection. Or at least, the sub-series will. Whether the particular references, because I might want different colours, will, is another question. However, let's start with the models. On my left here, this is a Mudmaster. This is the Gg-B100, a quad sensor beast, basically. In the middle, we have the Gravitymaster, which is an aviation pilot watch. They do a more souped up version of this, but it doesn't look as good in my opinion. That's twice the price, but they do, well, actually more like 3 times the price. But this is the cheaper one, but it's still probably about 300 quid, if not a bit more. And this is the GR for Gravity B200. And the one on my right is an all black King G, called the King. And this is not a sensor model, and it's not an aviation or trekking model. This is just a straight up all shock resistance, all vibration resistance, super strengthy Gshock that has multiband and solar capabilities. That you can get all three models in various colours. These are probably the most conservative colours that you could have bought, because don't get me wrong, I like a bit of colour, but I don't like an all red watch, say, because I just wouldn't wear it enough to justify it. However, let's start off with sizing. Now, it's pretty difficult just looking at these now to know which is bigger, in my opinion. I mean, in some ways, the actual Mudmaster, the one on the left, looks the biggest. But interestingly, I can confirm that the biggest one on the wrist, even though not in specs, is definitely, in my opinion, the King on the right. Now, because it's an all black model, it might make it look smaller. If I'd have got the positive version, it probably would have looked bigger. But because now, I mean, the actual measurements, I mean, in terms of thickness, the thickest one is the Mudmaster. The Mudmaster is about 19. This is about 19.2 or 19.3 mil thick. However, compared to something like this, which is about 18 mil, but the thickness is highly misleading for various reasons, because the thickness is only really talking about the bezel thickness, and the crystals are much lower, probably 2 or 3 mil lower really. So because of that, the thickest one is the Mudmaster on the left. But in terms of lug to lug, the biggest one is probably the Gravitymaster, which will be about 60, 64, 63. And the width is also big, probably about 54, 55, which is same as this. But the biggest one on the wrist, in my opinion, for feel, is the King G. So the winner for sizing, because it feels the nicest on the wrist, in my opinion, is the Mudmaster first, then it's probably the Gravitymaster, then third, the King slightly, although the Gravitymaster and King are very similar. Having said that, if I'd have got different models of Mudmasters, the other Mudmasters feel as big as these two. This is the smallest Mudmaster you can buy, and it is the best, comfiest and fitting. And for sizing, I'm going to give it the winner. Okay, let's talk about dials. They look totally different, although the Gravitymaster and Mudmaster do share similarities. Obviously, they are an analog digital watch. They both share a similar layout. They both have the lower kind of third of the dial, or lower quarter, in digital, whereas the main dial is analog, whereas the King has everything in digital. Now, I've got the black tank model of the King. It's not a fair comparison, obviously, but the legibility of the Gravitymaster and Mudmaster LED dials, LCD dials, is actually superior to the Mudmaster, to the King G. Am I right? You can see that there now, that it's not as legible as these two. Obviously, the white dials, white indices, are super legible on the Gravitymaster and Mudmaster. So in terms of legibility, the winners are the Mudmaster and Gravitymaster, and the loser is the King G. But that's in the negative model. In the positive model, I would say that the King G in positive, which I can show a picture of, is as legible. It has one of the best dials, best of displays on a G-Shock in all positive that you can actually buy. But it is not the same technology, or it is not equivalent to the dials on the displays on the Mudmaster and Gravitymaster. And so for legibility, winners are G-Shock, are Gravitymaster and Mudmaster, and this one loses. Dial presentation, again, it's difficult to compare because we're comparing an all digital to an analog digital. I prefer now analog digitals, or yeah, I do. They have more intricacy, they are more interesting, and of course, because the Gravitymaster and Mudmaster have all these additional features, the compasses, the thermometer, sunset, sunrise, all the other stuff that they put in it, location indicator, obviously there's more information to display. So obviously there's more going on, and they're more busier dials. For overall presentation, it depends what you're after. Do you want a more busier dial? Do you want all that information? Or do you want something more simple, just a digital watch that looks more macho and more sleek? I still prefer, in terms of looks, my favourite is the Mudmaster. It is. But you could give an argument that the King is more simple and is more versatile. Having said that, it does look like a big fat slab on the wrist. But they're sports watches, they're not dress watches by any stretch of the imagination, and they're supposed to look sporty. I prefer, for looks, I mean, the Gravitymaster does look like something out of Star Trek a little bit, but I like it, I do. But it does look a little bit exaggerated, should I say. But I have to say, the carbon fibre bezels on these two are just absolutely stunning. Notice how on the Gg-B100, which is this Mudmaster, notice how the tessellated, it's actually a weave, it's a weave of carbon fibre, so a matte weave in there. This is like a kind of satin or kind of matte, it's not straight matte, it's kind of a satin finish on the bezel, but on this it's a polished finish. The polished actually does make it look probably even nicer, but it does make it look a bit more blingy. But the looks of the Gravitymaster are a little bit more exaggerated, I'm trying to look for a better word, than the Mudmaster, which is more versatile in my opinion. Whereas this is a much more simpler kind of blocky look that, again, it's not comparable because it depends on what you want. There's no right or wrong answer. And I'll just give you a close-up of all the dials. Interestingly, the crystal on the Mudmaster and Gravitymaster is actually slightly domed. The good news is reflections are not a problem. Doming the crystal increases its strength, so gives it superior water resistance, or is one way that the manufacturer can use to get superior water resistance. They're all mineral crystals. You have to pay a lot more to get a sapphire on a G-Shock. You have to pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds. The King is only a flat crystal. Again, that's totally fine. I'll do loom later on. The loom's an interesting one. Oh, I'll do light now though. The light is fantastic on the Mudmaster. Lights up the sub dial and the main dial analog. It's also excellent on the Gravitymaster. Very similar. Look, lights up the sub dial, lights up the main dial. And the light is also really good on the King. Very nice green there coming through. Sorry about that. So yeah, the lights I'm going to give as a draw, but legibility of them sub-dials, the digital displays on these two is actually better than on the King. Right, bezels, it's a horses for courses, but I prefer this carbon fibre one. I love it. I'm going to give the winner to the Gravitymaster, close second to the Mudmaster, and then third, because it's a lot more boring, but again it's horses for courses, to the King, which is just a plain plastic resin bezel. Pushers, the Mudmaster has a nice feel to them. They are actually on this Mudmaster very easy to push, whereas on the Mudman, they are super difficult to push, unbelievably difficult to push, which you've not seen on this channel. But anyway, Gravitymaster, dead easy to push, not as grippy because the texture is different on the stainless steel pusher or the plastic one. Compass. Again, I'm not going to show you all the functions and features. I'll talk about them, but I'm not going to show you them all. King G's pushers. Yeah, they're more difficult to push because it is actually a stronger Mudmaster, stronger G-Shock, and I'll explain why. Well, I think it is slightly stronger. Yeah, it's more difficult to push. I prefer the pushers that are easier to push. So I'm going to give the winner to Mudmaster, second Gravitymaster, and third, but some people would disagree with that. If you're swimming, you don't want to have pushers that you can easily press. These are unusually easy for a Mudmaster, in my opinion. The ones that you want to use for swimming, even though they're all 200 meter water resist, would be the King, because it's more difficult to press the pusher. That's not to say that there's not technology in there that would... I'm not saying, well, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't press a pusher when you're underwater. But that's not to say that if you did do that, it would necessarily ingress water. You know, they're not stupid, Casio. They know that people are going to accidentally press them. But if you're underwater, the more difficult one to press is going to be the King. So for that measure, the King should win. But in just general usability and what you want, if you want to actually use the features and functions of the watch, the winner is going to be the Mudmaster and then the Gravitymaster. Right, let's do functions and features. Functions and features is another horses for courses. There's 2 points that are going to win it for it, depending on the type of person you are, the reasons why you use the watch. There's going to be 2 reasons why you'd want the King above these 2. And that reason would be solar and multiband. Solar meaning that there's a fluorescent well, you can actually see the solar cells on the actual, there's a solar panel basically on the dial, on the display, that captures fluorescent and non-fluorescent light and converts it, and gives it to the battery and gives you energy. Which is why the battery in this one, the King, is probably going to last you 8 to 10 years as a guesstimate. Might last you more, might last you less, but you can always swap the battery anyway by Casio or by a third party. You can pay to have it swapped to another rechargeable battery, but the battery in this one is chargeable, which means you get years and years more than in these two. However, you also get the multiband, which is there. Multiband 6 at the top, which means that it will try 6 times a day, if you're in a multiband country, to get the radio controlled time signal, the frequency, and will give you second perfect timekeeping 365 days a year, which is simply fantastic, which is why I love those two features. Those two features are not in these particular series of Mudmaster and Gravitymaster, but I think you can get a more expensive version of the Gravitymaster that is about 800 quid, that has multiband, and you can get, not even more expensive, you can just get alternatives like the GXW-G-100, which I've had on this channel, which has multiband, doesn't have sensors, and it has solar. Again, and you can get the more souped up Mudmasters, the GW-G-1000, GW-G-2000, that has both Bluetooth and multiband. It's horses for courses. For most people, they're not going to be as bothered about the sensors. Now, although this one has the radio timekeeping and the solar charging, the King, these two have sensors and compass and location indicator and all these other and Bluetooth. They both have Bluetooth. So one other benefit would be, above the one that doesn't have Bluetooth, would be that if you're in a country, you can synchronize timekeeping anywhere that you can have a synchronized internet time smartphone. So if you have Bluetooth, you can go to all the countries in the world that have that, and that you can get perfect timekeeping as long as you keep it connected to Bluetooth, or if you update it once a week, click the connect button, it'll update the time on the smartphone, on the Gshock app, that you can't do on the King G. So it is a horses for courses. And the battery on these two is going to last about 2 to 3 years, probably. I don't actually know how long my units will last. What I can tell you is that some people on the internet have said it has only lasted 2 years. Some I think have got a bit longer. Some of my cheaper G-Shocks that I paid like 50 to 80 quid off Amazon for, I've had lasting for over 5 years. Okay? Because I've never swapped the battery on some of them that I've had for 5 years. Bought them in like 2017 and before that even. And so all I'll say is that I would hope that 2 years is conservative, but it might not be. These two models have all these functions and sensors, right? The pedometer, compass, altimeter and all that I believe is the reason why they don't have solar power, basically. That functionality with the technologies at the time when they made these watches, which is only a couple of years old, basically, or 4 years old for this one, or 3 years old for this one, and 2 years old for this one. Maybe in the future, Casio will be able to make them with solar functionality, because they do need that, in my opinion. I would not feel comfortable changing the battery. I would take it to a specialist to do it. But I do know there are people out there that change them on Watch You Seek forums and stuff. So it's horses for courses. I'm going to give it a draw. Having said that, because the Bluetooth functionality gives you essentially multiband as long as you're happy to turn it on, the Bluetooth, really the functions and features are superior on these two. And I'll quickly run through them. Obviously it's on barometer, temperature. Oh, that's for like mission logs. Oh yeah, it's got mission logs. There's going to be a sunset, sunrise, stopwatch, timer, alarms, world time, GMT time. Then you've got night time. You've got so much stuff on these watches that you can go through that, I mean, I've shown you in other reviews that you can see on my channel, where you can see the mission logs, where it tracks, you know, the information, the distance, the speed, the height and all that above sea level and all that stuff, temperature. And it also captured any pictures you took on your phone, it puts it in that mission log. Very similar to the Mudmaster, this one. I'm not going to obviously show you all these. You get what you can have. World time, alarm, stop. This is much more difficult to press. Yeah, and there is other stuff. I mean, see where it says receive there, get. That means get the radio signal for the time, but you don't have to do that. If you're in a new city for the first time, yes, you do, but you have to tell it what to look for. But if you're in Britain and you've already set it to that, it'll automatically take the time about 6 times a day, I believe. So, yeah, really the features and functions are much more, there's far more of them in the Mudmaster and Gravitymaster, but what people may find more useful is the tough solar and the multiband, possibly. So it's horses for courses. Now then, let's talk about case backs. Stainless steel versus plastic. I don't have any strong dislike for plastic case back. I don't have. And by the way, I use all these watches all the time, so they're not going to be in total pristine condition, because I do wear them. They're in my regular rotation. I'm not one of them people who buys them and sells them on immediately. I wear them for years, depending on the model, of course. I do prefer stainless steel, though. Oh, these two Mudmasters are part of the carbon core guard. I'm going to give these two the winner. I prefer stainless steel above plastic. That's not to say that it's a deal by any stretch of the imagination. That's not to say that it's a deal breaker. Of course it isn't. It's a case back. It's one of the least things I'm totally bothered about, because with Casio, with the plastic ones, you know it's going to be rock solid anyway. Now then, let's talk about bands. Bands is going to be a really interesting one. They're all plastic, basically, but they're all a particular different mould of resin, different polymer resin. The Mudmaster one is thick, is very thick. Look how thick that is. And it's less supple, probably, than the other two. This one, the Gravitymaster, it feels the cheapest. It feels the cheapest, but it's probably the thinnest, and it feels more like a traditional kind of more economical plastic strap that you find on some of the cheaper G-Shocks. But that's not to say it isn't super comfortable, because it is. This one it feels better on the King. Again, it's not the same. It doesn't feel like the same mould of resin that you get on the Mudmaster. It is more supple. You can bend it more. See, I mean, for keepers, okay. Sorry, for keepers and buckles, the best one is the King. The King is the best one. It's stainless steel. It is stainless steel. It's twin tang. It's attached with screws, and it has a plastic keeper. This is very similar, but it's not attached with screws. It's attached with a pin. Twin tang with a plastic keep. But the Gravitymaster has a terrible clasp. It's fairly terrible. It's plastic. It's cheap. Ugh. I don't have a clue why they've done it, and the plastic on it is kind of coming off. It's wearing down. I don't understand what they've done here with this, or if it's on my unit on its own, I don't know. But It's not a big issue though. It's still secure, but it's just the worst clasp of the lot by a country mile. It is the worst one. They should have put a stainless steel one on this model. I don't know why they chose not to. Now for comfort, I'll put them all on my wrist. Now that Mudmaster is definitely a tougher band, less supple than the other two, but got some fantastic wrist presence. That Gravitymaster, absolutely fantastic wrist presence. I'll put the King on. I've put it on super loose because I'm trying to get it to fit in a place where I wouldn't normally fit it, obviously. All got fantastic wrist presence. Comfiest Mudmaster, in my opinion. Second comfiest Gravitymaster, third comfiest King. But it's close, it is close. Because they're all a similar weight. They're all probably around, they're all between 90 or 85 and 100 grams. For winner of clasps, the clear winner is the King. It has the best, most functioning clasp in stainless steel. Great mechanism. Second is the Mudmaster on my wrist. Stainless steel again. It's not as heavy duty, but it is still really good. And yeah, and the worst one is the Gravitymaster for clasps. For bands, I think for comfort, most people are going to say this is probably the comfiest. Even though it probably feels like the cheapest, I think most people will think the Gravitymaster is the comfiest band. It is also the thinnest, or one of the thinnest. But the King's band feels better, in my opinion. But on the wrist, the least supple band is the Mudmaster, but I actually find this model to be the comfiest. So for comfort, the winner is Mudmaster. Second, Gravitymaster. Third, King. However, it's close and I can wear them all day. So I'll just put that one out there. It is close and I can wear them all out there. But this, the Gravitymaster has the worst clasp. This has the best clasp, second to that. But I know that many people don't like the Mudmasters. They don't like the Mudmaster band. They think it irritates the skin, or it's too non-pliable, if you will. And but I don't have that opinion. I don't have the same opinion. I think this is a really comfortable band as well on the Gravitymaster. Even though it feels the cheapest, it is really comfortable. And the King's band is great too. So they're all good in their own way, really. I just wish the clasp was swapped on this Gravitymaster because it is so crap. But anyway, we move on. So that was an interesting one, an interesting comparison. The last thing to compare really is loom. Now obviously, there's no, it's only really to be compared on these two. The auto light feature, I'd have to check the spec if these two have it, but this one definitely does have it, which means that if you put it on the wrist, it will automatically, and you tilt the wrist forward, it will automatically turn the light on without you having to physically press it. Burns down the battery more, but you can turn it on if you want to, and I think you can change the duration. Now for loom on the Mudmaster is excellent. It's on the hands and the outer indices. It's beautiful. It's Neo Bright loom, Casio's proprietary loom. Really good, really nice. It is also really nice on the Gravitymaster. You get a big 12. Look at that, beautiful. The hands are not as nicely loomed though, or because they've done it in that sword style. It's not the same style as on the Mudmaster, so it's not as visible. I'll give it a draw with the Mudmaster and Gravitymaster for the loom. Obviously, can't do this one. So, I hope you've enjoyed that comparison. One last thing to talk about is value. Now, I think they're all great value, but one of them is a lot cheaper, and the King is actually a lot cheaper. Depending on the model you get, like the all black version, I only paid about 129 quid for this, with multiband and solar, which is a total steal, it is. Whereas these two are more like 300 to 350 quid. Sometimes it can be more, right? Or you can sometimes get them in a deal closer to 200 quid, but it depends. You know, Black Friday deal coming up, sure you'll be able to get them. But again, you know, it depends where you look on the internet. This one is like a third of the price, or a half to third of the price. So for value, the winner is the King, because this functionality for the price is better than that. Better than paying 350 quid. But these two are still fantastic value, because there's no other watches on the market that have these features. All the stuff, the Bluetooth, the compass, the mission logs, location indicator, the water resist, all that, the fat, carbon fiber, carbon core, all that features. There's no one else on the market that does anything like it. So, you know, maybe if there was, maybe they would charge more like £1,000. So for 300 quid or 250 quid, because you can get them in deals, they're also fantastic value. So they're all fantastic value, but the winner, because it's so cheap, is the King G. Second, Mudmaster. Third, Gravitymaster. But I know I've took a long time with this comparison, but I've tried to go as in depth as possible. I hope you've enjoyed it. I do love my G-Shocks. It's been Dave. Have a great weekend.